you all for being here. As you can see, the Senior Truth Series, this is actually our 24th seminar that we've done in a row. We did 2 in September and 2 in October, because in September and October we're kind of trying to test out this community here. And it's been a great experience, and that's why we're going to be moving here next year in 2026. Jenny's very organized, and so we have all of our topics planned out for 2026. I do not have all my panelists figured out for 2026, but I promise you they will be as amazing as these ladies here. And you truly are in for a treat, because we're gonna, each of them could probably talk a full day about what they know and the knowledge they have. But we just have an hour and a half together. We will have time at the end for questions, so write those down, and you know, if it's, we just can't wait, we can ask it in the middle, but for the most part, we'll probably wait till the end for most of those questions. I think I will shut that door. If you guys are okay with that? Okay.
Sorry. I'll shut that other one.
Okay, that works. So some of you are new to the Senior Truth Series, maybe not new to Lenexa, and you're wondering who I am. My name is Julie Spalding. I am the host and the moderator of the Senior Truth Series. I started this 2 years ago. My day job is real estate, and I help people downsize from their home into either a smaller home or into a senior community or into with families, but I help on the real estate side. But what I also do is I have a full set of resources of people who I trust. And what I found is that it's hard out there. There's a lot of information out there, and it's also sometimes hard to know who you can trust. And unfortunately, there's people that will scam you and take advantage of any of us, really. And actually, next month in November at Tomahawk, that's our topic, is technology and avoiding scams. So that's going to be a great one as well. And so we'll give you some tips on that. So anyway, I decided to start this seminar series so that I can bring in experts, people that I trust, and I also have education partners, because this is kind of a bonus seminar. We have the Alzheimer's Association here, but the other people already had their kind of scheduled plan. But this group of people that are the education partners are here to be a resource for you. We all, of course, have a business, but we have a heart that wants to help people with all aspects of their lives. And so they're people that I trust, that I would send my family, my mom, my dad to, anybody like that. So anyway, that's what this is for, and you don't see those people here today, but they will be here all next year as well. So, but if you have any questions about that, we also have a website that's pretty helpful. It has links to all of our education partners. I'm working on doing videos. If you watch the videos, they are raw footage, like mistakes, good things, bad things, it's all in there. So you might even see my backside as I push the button and walk away. So it's pretty raw. I'm working on a video editor. So if somebody has somebody that does great at editing videos, I need them. I need their help. So without any just hesitation here, let's get started on, because this is a big topic that we could talk a very long time about. So let's go ahead, and I will introduce you, or actually I'm going to let them introduce themselves, to the 4 panelists. Sometimes we have 2, sometimes we have 3. This is a topic that I didn't know who to pick. So they're all so good that I'm like, we're going to do all 4. And it is going to be a lot about caregiving, a little bit about, you know, the dementia umbrella, and Valerie's going to start us up and kind of talk about some of that stuff. But let's go ahead and introduce ourselves first, and then we'll get started with the program. So, Ruth? Yes. There you go.
Okay, I'm filling up.
Yep, just got to talk real close. Kind of put it on your chin.
Okay, I'm Ruth Cowles, and you have to excuse me, I'm having a voice issue. But I don't consider myself an expert in caregiving. I know we're supposed to introduce ourselves and share our experience with caregiving. My experience was one-on-one with my mother. And so I would like to talk about that from my daughter's perspective, what that was like for family members. Can you hear me? Because I don't know if I'm projecting.
Yeah, just hold it.
I'm a mother and a grandmother and a great-grandmother. Have 3 adult children, 7 grandchildren, and 2 great-grands. And so trying to spend time with them. I am currently retired, formerly was a nurse. And I was talking up here to Angela and told her that my very first nursing job was in geriatrics. And so got involved with some dementia in that regard. And then my own mother had dementia. And then we also cared for my mother-in-law up until she passed away as well, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah, I got real close.
Okay,
I know.
good morning. I'm Angela Rushing, and I am a nurse. I work specifically with people living with dementia and various forms of dementia. I have been doing that for about 30 years and about 22 years as a nurse, and am a certified dementia specialist and a certified validation practitioner that also works with using validation with people with dementia. So that's, currently I'm with, we just started Angela Care at Home, which is we make resources available, let people know what resources are available to help them keep their loved ones at home longer, so that they're able to stay at home and have the care that they deserve at home prior to going into someplace.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, is that one working?
I think so,
There you
yes.
go.
Good morning, I'm Valerie Johnson. I am Program Manager with the Heart of America chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. And my path in this area began in my graduate training, dental public health. And my focus was working with caregivers who were caring for someone at home, particularly their oral hygiene challenges. So I guess you could say it was more of an academic exercise for me, but I have found myself as a long distance caregiver and support to a family member who is dealing with an early onset of Alzheimer's disease. Thank you for having us.
Lisa?
Hello, my name is Lisa Elliott, and I am the sales director, engagement coordinator, and community program director over at Prairie Elder Care. We operate a therapeutic care farm. There's only 2 therapeutic care farms in the world where people with dementia live. We're one of them, and then the other one is over in Denmark. So we're very happy to be able to do that for our residents and for their families. We kind of take a different approach. We try to treat dementia and give back community connection and control to our residents. Everybody kind of joins in and finds a purpose for themselves throughout the day. Part of my job is to also work really closely with families and the community at large. I'm the chairperson for the Heart of America Alzheimer's for the Do What You Love, which used to be the longest day. So very happy to partner with them, and they support us in lots of ways. We also have a support group that we do in partnership with the Alzheimer's. And we offer a day program for people who are living at home, but they can come to our day program and get that mini version of life on the farm. And it gives the caregivers a nice respite break, but it gives the clients who attend that community connection and control, and gives them a little bit of purpose back in their day.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. As you can see, we have some amazing experiences, and they're gonna really share a lot with you. I imagine all of you have somebody that you know that's either you've lived with personally that's had some type of dementia or Alzheimer's, or that you know a friend that has had. I don't know that there's very many people that it hasn't touched. in our life. This is my husband, he's helping me out. His father passed away with Alzheimer's. His mom was an incredible caregiver. Ruth knows Yvonne, and she did it all, and she did a great job. But it was it was difficult, and she didn't take a lot of help, but I think she did find some help a lot with the Alzheimer's Association and their hotline that they have. His aunt also suffered from that. My mom's husband is kind of undiagnosed, and I think we're going to talk about that too, but he refuses to find out if that's something that he has or that he can get any help with, so he's kind of on the undiagnosed side. And then my sister actually worked for the Alzheimer's Association for several years and was in charge of the walk, so that was kind of my first introduction to it before I even experienced or knew anybody that was suffering from the disease. So anyway, I look forward to this. I learn something every time, and I think you will too. Valerie, we're gonna have her start off with just kind of general overview of dementia and how that works, because they're also sometimes mushed together, and I think she'll add some clarity to that. Do you want a slide for this one?
Yeah, we have a slide for this. If you can see it, that would be helpful, but it's a pretty easy term to kind of understand, but another slide, it's an umbrella that you'll see. Yeah, just flip a couple more. So
If you want any of these slides, you can let me know, and I will be happy to email them to you, but she also has a lot of information over there, or it's all on the website too, but,
So dementia is an umbrella term, and it deals with a change in thinking and behavior, memory changes that affect daily life. And so under that umbrella falls Alzheimer's disease, which makes up most of its most common form of dementia. But then there's also vascular dementia. There can be frontotemporal dementia, or also FTD. There's also a Lewy body dementia, which is often associated with Parkinson's disease. And there can be mixed dementia, which is more than one. And so dementia, again, is just kind of that umbrella term, and all the others fall below that. But we are the Alzheimer's Association. I like to point this out. We are the Alzheimer's Association. Alzheimer's, as I said, is the most common form of dementia, but we support all dementias. And that is our vision, a world without Alzheimer's and all dementia.
Can I add
yes,
something to
please.
that? Yeah, so this is kind of mind-boggling.
It's just kind of touchy.
Just
Really get it right. Okay.
It's
Yeah, it's touchy, yeah. It's the vein of my, how do you say that?
okay, let's try this
Your
again.
arch nemesis.
Thank you.
Just some more knowledge for you. There's over 100 different kinds of dementia. So, and you don't necessarily need to know all of them. You need to know the kind that you're dealing with, right? But as caregivers and people who care for people living with dementia, it's really important to kind of know what that looks like from a care perspective. The other thing that's really interesting and that we're seeing a lot of that Valerie did mention is we're getting a lot of people coming to us with these dual diagnoses. So you can have more than one kind of dementia. Again, important to know and understand when you're caring for somebody 24/7. What we do at Prairie Elder Care is a very individualized plan for each resident. And so knowing all the things we can know about their diagnosis obviously helps us to give the best care. But that's still, people are still so surprised by how many there are and that you can have more than one kind. Also, I just want to give a little bit of time to early onset, which is something new that we're seeing. And in our day program, we have 50-year-olds who attend, who can no longer work, who are living at home. And so that's really kind of becoming a new issue as well for healthcare and the people who care for them, and the challenges for families, because many of them are still providing for families and have children at home. And So those are all new problems that we have to deal with and help families work through. So
Great. And as a healthcare provider, Angela, were you seeing that too, some of that early onset dementia or changes in, what did you see in that, working in that field?
Yes, I've taken care even, as young as when I was 30. I had a resident who was 38 and, just started the symptoms, just up and quit his job one day, unable to function and carry on life. And as you know, when you're young like that, they're still very active. And so, as Lisa pointed out, having that individualized care is so important because you need to know that background and what their experience was to be able to tailor their care, to keep them, you know, to give them purpose as long as you can. But definitely, over the years, several people I have cared for in their 40s and 50s. And so it is becoming more common that you're seeing the younger onset.
And I think at that point too, you're even more apt to try to keep people in their home and, you know, be able to have as much of a, maintain your daily schedule as possible and some of those things. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's important. So, Ruth, do you know what, did your mom have a diagnosis in a specific category?
She did not,
No. Okay.
and that makes it a little tricky.
Yeah.
When you don't have a proper diagnosis to be able to really know. We knew because of the signs that we saw early on with her. And I think the whole dementia thing, it's kind of like when you drove here today, there was fog, right? I mean, I drove in fog to get here. And I think sometimes dealing with dementia, both for the caregiver and the care receiver, is like being in the fog. You know, you can't really see too far down the road ahead, and you're not really sure what's around you, and it's a little precarious. And for the care receiver, for the person with dementia, it can be very frightening, very scary. For the caregiver, it can also be frightening and scary because you're not sure exactly what's happening and where that's going to go. But no, my mom was a widow for 22 years before she passed away, and she lived independently. She was a very strong woman, and just really an outgoing, wonderful mom and a wonderful woman. But because she lived alone for so long, she had a lot of contact with my brothers. I lived overseas during that time. She had a lot of contact with my brothers who saw her constantly, but I think that she really started down this dementia path before we realized that that was her issue.
And kind of our second question that we were gonna talk about are some of those early signs. And so, what did you notice or start to notice with her that you felt like, oh, this, maybe we're not, or do you feel like you caught it as early as?
No,
maybe?
I feel like, you know, the one thing that is a kind of common symptom that people notice and we notice is, you know, her failure to remember things. And I think for some of us, that can be like, I forgot where I put my keys, but we all do that. So then we don't have to be like stressing, like, oh, is this dementia? I forgot where I put my keys. Eventually I'll remember where I put things, right? But failing to remember and constantly repeating herself, the same questions over and over, or the same story over and over. Refusing, she started to withdraw. She was a very social, outgoing person, but she started to withdraw from, she would not go to her appointments. She stopped going to church, and church, that was her life. She was very involved in church. My dad was a pastor, and Mom was very involved in church. She stopped even associating with people and became very much, her world shrunk. She became slowly withdrawing. She started to have some paranoia, saying that people were taking things from the house. And so that's fairly a common symptom too, and some irrational behavior that was hard to figure out why, where that came from. I could give you some examples about that, but it wasn't until really her 90th birthday when it became very obvious that she could no longer live by herself. And she would leave the burner on the stove or leave the water running, that kind of thing, and sitting in the dark.
Hmm.
You know,
Interesting, yeah. I know, with Jay's dad, he had traveled to Japan for work, and when he came back, they went to dinner, and he'd asked Jay several times, like, oh, you went to Japan? That's amazing. And then again, you know, oh, wow, I didn't know you were saying dinner, you know, I didn't know you went to Japan. So, what are some of the signs? I know you have kind of the 10, warning signs on you find that hun on one of the,
Yeah, and that's,
and you probably have a handout for that too,
I
right?
do,
Okay.
I have lots of
There we go.
resources
She's
today.
yeah.
So I will call your attention to what's at the table as we go through our discussion. But Ruth, I think you hit on a lot of the warning signs and really put those in perfect examples of changes that occur that are not normal for that person. So, you know, there's a difference between age-related changes and then more of a warning sign. And so I did bring some cards that do have a list of those signs. They're on the screen too. They're probably a little difficult to read.
Good
But-
luck with that.
But we do have some of those resources for you. But I think you've hit on a lot of those. And one other that I might mention is, you know, kind of a change in visual spatial relationships. So not being able to function quite the same way in your environment. Maybe there's more of a, you know, little fender benders, things like that start to happen where there's a misjudgment of their orientation, if you will.
Angela, what do you see as far as when people say, oh, maybe I need some help or someone to come into the home? What are people starting to see, kind of those, you know, sometimes I think there's everybody has a threshold of like, okay, that now I need some help, you know, and so we're reluctant to call, I think, always.
So with individuals living alone, so someone calling about maybe their mother or their father who are living alone, then we see a lot of mom's not taking her medicine, dad's not taking, you know, or maybe they're taking it twice because they didn't remember if they had taken it. Not when it's with someone, so that they're living with someone. They've noticed that we're getting called in like when they're starting to be resistant with care, starting to be difficult to manage those activities of daily living, getting in the shower, getting dressed, the oral care that she talked about earlier. And so sometimes it makes it easier if someone from the outside comes in to do the help. They come in to help, that frees you up to where, or the caregiver, where they're not the bad person in trying to get those tasks completed. And so, also whenever someone's having to leave, if there's a safety issue, let's say somebody's going out for a walk, unable to find their way back to the house. And so getting turned around in their familiar environment.
Thank you. And Lisa, what about you? You have the daycare or the, you know, is that the right word for that? That seems,
Day program,
day program,
Yeah.
thank you. That does sound better.
social club.
Yeah.
Yeah, mainly, you know, they're all the things the ladies have mentioned, for sure.
And then when it's time to move, when people decide that they wanna make that their permanent residence, a little bit further.
Right, it's really kind of fun at the day program because everybody comes, you know, for their first day and, you know, they don't have dementia. You know, everybody else does, but they don't. And usually an hour or two into it, you know, they're loving it and they're just part of the mix and they're fully, you know, involved and part of that little community. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, what we see a lot of right now, our caregivers are so like just in the thick of caring for people at home, and it's very, very hard. That it's even hard to get a clear picture when somebody does need to transition to a 24/7, because you know, everybody's just in it trying to survive that to the next minute. And, you know, if you ask them or you ask the family, they don't really accurately even comprehend what's happening. And so that can be a challenge as well. We do work really closely with our families that move in, and we spend a lot of time with them from the time somebody goes on a wait list until they actually move in. And that time is, we have found to be really valuable because we get to know them and kind of learn a little bit about how it's going and how they problem solve as a family and a support group. But yeah, there are just a lot of challenges all the way around, and dementia can look really different on different people.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
Just through the people I know, that some people are a little more angry or.
Right.
Withdrawn or.
And some people are really good with that muscle memory. They know they can put on the act. They have that down pat. And so if I were to come in to see them, I may leave saying, Bob's amazing. What's the problem? Bob's great. But Bob really isn't amazing. You know, he might have been on for 10 minutes, but the rest of the time, you know, his little world's falling apart. So just another challenge.
And one of the challenges are emotions, right? Like there's just so many emotions, I think, that come with us from all different sides. Person who's, you know, dealing with it every day, as well as the caregiver, families, those kind of things. What do you see, Valerie, in some of those resources for people, or what kind of emotions are you seeing? You guys have a lot of support for that.
Yes, we do. I think a lot of times there's some hesitation to have that conversation because there is some fear. There's definitely some fear about what may be going on, but it's important to find out, because not all memory changes or some challenges with memory are necessarily a form of dementia. It can be a medical situation. So it's important to get a diagnosis, but you know, with those emotions, I'll kind of go back to having those conversations. Again, brought a little resource because that's what we do. We have a sheet here, it's on the table if you'd like one, but it does talk about having those conversations, whether it's about going to the doctor, whether it's talking about driving, or whether it's making legal and financial plans, because these are all conversations that can be very difficult. And so, so this is definitely a resource for that.
Right, yeah, and I think you have support groups too that I feel like that talk about those just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Lisa mentioned, they have a support group and obviously a wonderful social engagement program. We have lots of support groups. We have in-person and virtual support groups. We also have some memory cafe for social engagement. We have memory cafes. We also have a music jam session.
What are the memory cafes? Are those for caregivers or are those for people with dementia?
Memory cafes are for both.
Oh, okay.
So it can basically just be getting together at a program, and there might be a theme for the day.
Where are some of those in town?
Sure. So there's a memory cafe at the Olathe Library. There's also one at Archwell, which is off of 87th. And the jam session is a little bit, it's kind of its own unique thing, but we have a great jam session that takes place at Central Resource Library. And that's an hour of just wonderful volunteers who offer their musical talents and engage the audience with lots of singing and musical instruments. I'm telling you, it is a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. What do you see, Angela, as far as emotions, and you're kind of coming into people's homes? I think that's, you know, you get things a little bit more raw sometimes when you're in the home.
Definitely, and frequently, what we find is that our caregivers do better working with those that are living with dementia than the family members. It's very difficult and, for family members, the caregivers at home, caregivers are aware of everything that their loved one is capable of. And so they know, who that person, everything they used to do, everything they handled in life. And so as they start to see the signs of dementia, it becomes frustrating for the caregivers. And so it is, I know what you're capable of, come on, why don't, remember, and so a lot of times, the masking that the individual with dementia will do to show that I'm okay, I'm fine, and they'll put that front up for their loved ones, for their family and friends, that they can let that mask down when it comes to the caregivers who are coming in. And so we see that. I just wanna circle back real
Sure,
quick
yes,
to something
please.
that we touched on. Excuse me. When Valerie was talking about the umbrella and the various forms of dementia, and then she just was talking about, sometimes you may be having symptoms of dementia and it's not truly dementia. So I just wanted to circle back to that and say that there are some forms of dementia that are known like as reversible dementia. So sometimes like with a urinary tract infection or with pneumonia, when there's an infection that comes on, sometimes there will be dementia symptoms that come along with those infections. And so to just reiterate what she said about the importance of getting checked out, because it may be something that a dementia, that you're able to, if you have an infection, that you're able to treat the infection, and the dementia in that case is reversible. And so I just wanted to circle back and say that, because what you did, whenever you said that, that is accurate.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, those UTIs, I've never, my goodness, I've learned more than I need to know about those things, but it is amazing what they will do to our minds when, in our bodies. Wow, it's crazy. Ruth, what kind of emotions did you see? And also, Ruth she hasn't mentioned it yet, but she did write a book about her experience with her mom, and I know she'll say she made it more for her family, but she does have it here, and it's it's full of great insights as well, so.
Well, thank you for that, and I did write it for the family, but also to be helpful, if someone's interested in some tips and things that I learned along the way. But I want to just mention about the support groups. You did mention that, and so I wanted to say that yes, I'm glad that she mentioned it, because it's so important to have support. And I started a support group at our church when I was long distance caregiving for my mother when she was still living in Pennsylvania. I started that because there were a number of women, I was on staff of the church, but there were a number of women in the church that I knew had family members either in facilities or in their home or long distance like I was, and just to get together and be able to say, this is what's happening, is this normal, or do I need to be worried about this, or what resources do you have? We shared ideas, we shared resources, and it's a wonderful thing to do, to be part of one. So I'm just going to encourage y'all to get support if you need it, because you can't do this by yourself. But as far as the emotions, I know that one of the things that's difficult is the person who has the memory loss struggles, and sometimes they react in ways that they did not react in before the memory loss. And so mom never wanted to be a burden. You hear this commonly among people. None of us want to be a burden, right? So she never wanted to be a burden. She didn't want to feel like she was a burden. And no matter how much I assured her, we love you, we want to have you. I spent years not being in your state, and now I get to have you, and I'm so blessed to have you here. You're not a burden. She still had this continual thing over her head that she felt like she was a burden. And anxiety. She struggled with a lot of anxiety about things she never worried about before, especially about finances. Do I have money? Is there money? I don't want to end up on the street, those kind of things. And the sadness and the tears. I don't think In all my growing up years, I don't think I saw my mother cry maybe more than a handful of times. But now that she had dementia, she would have so many tears, and it was so sad. But then she would get happy again quickly. It's hard for the caregivers, it's hard for family members to see those changes happening, those emotions, and know that you can't really fix that. You can't help her not be sad. You just have to be patient and loving and kind and respectful, and honoring fears, irrational fears. Also, she had from time to time, and frustration. She said to me one day she realized that she wasn't remembering something, and she said, "Why can't I remember?" And we had a little conversation about that, but I said, "It's okay, Mom, I'll remember for you." And in the moment that seemed okay with her. Restlessness, things like that. But I think for the caregiver or for the family, there is that frustration sometimes that, I don't know how to make this better. And some people struggle with impatience. I have a friend who lives in my neighborhood whose mother has severe dementia, and the husband is so impatient with her. He just struggles with impatience because she always was so capable before. And so,
What did you say in our conversation? We always try to talk beforehand, but you had said about that you tried to really focus on the fact that that person was still there. How did you say that?
Well,
exactly?
you remember who they were. Remember who she was, and the abilities, and that she was very capable. And so keep that in mind. This is my mom, and these are, I knew she was a strong woman. I knew she was a strong woman of faith. And so even when she was anxious or worried, I knew that wasn't really how she was, because she really, it changes you. Dementia is like it's a monster, called the monster. It changes things in you. And so that's hard, I think, for a family to see. But if we can remember the person, who that person is inside, even though that person may not be exhibiting those same characteristics and qualities right now, it helps a lot. And to just really, the overarching thing for us was, how can we best honor our mother? Honor your father and your mother. That's kind of the mandate that we live by. So what can we do to most honor her? What is most honoring? Even if in the moment she doesn't feel like it's honoring. She never wanted to leave her home, but we brought her to live with me. And so was that honoring to her? Well, I hope she thought it was, even though she was sad and wanted to be in her home that she'd lived in for 52 years. But,
It's hard to make those
it is
changes.
hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
And you question yourself as the family. You wonder, am I doing the right thing? You're unsure, like, is this the right decision for her? And so that's why you need support. And fortunately, my brothers and I were on the same page. I kept in touch with them weekly. I sent them notes about what happened that week, just so we could bounce ideas off each other.
That's great.
Julie,
That's great. Yes.
Can I add one thing?
Please, yeah.
So we've talked a lot about emotions and having the conversation and that sort of thing, but I think it's super important to remember that in doing that you involve the person with dementia as well. And so I haven't seen your question list. I'm assuming you're going to talk about early detection and diagnosis. You've talked a little bit about diagnosis, but that's why it's so important for people to be diagnosed in the early stages of the disease, so that they can be a part of that decision making. Nobody wants to have decisions made for them. So upon diagnosis, you sit down and you say, what does this look like for you? What's important for me to remember for you as this disease progresses? I care for my mother-in-law, and I will tell you that the fact that she's still cognitive enough to be a part of her own decision-making has been a game changer. She would fight and kick, and it would be the complete opposite. She was not able to take a part in making the decisions that are being, chosen for her. So that's why early detection is so important.
And some people resist that a little bit. though.
Very much so.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind me saying something about that, I know it's important for them to be part of the decision making, but I would challenge all of us to make those decisions now, ahead of time. It's better to sit down ahead of time, even with your adult children or whatever, and talk through those things that maybe later on you're not going to be able to talk through with them.
Instead
And
of crisis mode.
that's right, do it when you're fully aware of what's happening, with your life. And we don't know which direction it's gonna go, right? So it doesn't hurt to have some things in place ahead of time.
And as far as diagnosis, we had talked about that a little bit, and what are you seeing, Valerie, what are the, kind of that, as far as, when's a good time maybe to start trying to get a diagnosis? Cause I think that's a difficult time to, or, you know, I know, like your mom didn't have one, Ruth, a diagnosis at all. I know, I don't know if your dad did officially, so, probably because he didn't want to, so, yeah. What do you see for that?
So again, going back to those potential other things that could be going on, that's why we want to get to a doctor and get an evaluation. And so there is, we now have some better tools for evaluating what's going on. And so we now have 2 FDA-approved blood tests that can help determine if in fact there is an Alzheimer's disease diagnosis looming. And so we have that. We also know that there can be imaging tests, there can be neurocognitive testing, and so putting all those pieces together will really help us determine what's going on. But I was going to also add on to what Angela said, and that was that, besides like infections, there can also be stress, thyroid, depression. Depression can look a lot like dementia. Agreed? Yeah. So it is really important to get that diagnosis as early as possible. And so as Michelle mentioned, so that everyone can take part in what's next and make a plan.
Okay, that's great. They have some amazing slides, and we don't have them. That's the hard thing about having a panel, is our panel is not very linear. If you have a speaker, so what does that say?
It's a diagnosis slide.
Okay, tell us what that says.
Those,
I can't see it.
those are the puzzle pieces that come together. So of course the physical exam, and then you're looking, we're looking at biomarkers, imaging that I talked about. Right.
Can the blood test tell any kind of dementia, anything under that umbrella, or just Alzheimer's?
Mostly Alzheimer's. It's
Okay.
able to tell you what, if in fact it is Alzheimer's.
So if it comes back and it says, no, you don't have Alzheimer's, does that mean that you don't have any of the other ones, or that just means that you don't have that particular?
Right, as
Okay.
far as I understand, it's just,
Okay.
testing for Alzheimer's, the
Okay.
presence of beta amyloid and tau tangles.
What's that last one say? Cognitive training? Test.
Cognitive system. So you're kind of your paper and pen testing kind of thing.
Okay, which is what they've had for a while, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
But see, what we used to have to do a spinal tap or a lumbar puncture, if you will, right, to see what the cerebral spinal fluid is telling us. And so that's kind of where this blood test has really changed that process.
Okay.
A lot easier to administer.
Yeah, sounds, anything with a needle though, I don't like. I have physicphobia. I don't know, there's probably a name for it, I'm gonna learn it, so I can say.
White coat syndrome.
Is that what it is? Oh, well, that works, that's easy. I thought it'd be a name I couldn't remember, but I can do white coat syndrome.
That's what it is.
I have to get my second shingle shot. Oh, I just gotta schedule it. Such a baby. Okay, so we also talked a little bit, here's the problem, there's so many things to talk about, right? It's just hard to know what to do. And we will let you ask questions here in just a second. It feels like a lot of things we talked about are on the negative side, but there are things that they're finding out as ways to delay it. If you don't have any signs of dementia, there's ways to kind of keep yourself healthy, keep your brain strong. So let's talk about some of those facts, some of these things. Angela, do you want to mention a few things that you?
I will.
Yeah.
Obviously your nutrition, eating good, consistency in your schedule, getting some exercise.
Talk a little closer.
Sorry.
So consistency in the schedule.
Consistency in your schedule,
Okay.
maintaining a consistency in your schedule, exercise, good nutrition, those are all important. Stress in your life, obviously, is, horrible for any of your disease processes, but, reducing the amount of stress, getting good sleep, everything I'm not doing. Hello.
What do you see, like, at Prairie Elder Care? Is there stuff that you're trying to, you work on a farm, so are you feeding stuff from your farm, or are you eating things, or is it just more kind of for that engagement and kind of being in an environment that's positive and outdoors?
Yeah, we do have an organic garden that we operate. We do spring, summer, and fall crops. The residents do eat from it from like May through the end of October. We've just finished kind of cleaning it out. And you know, we do look at just a healthy, well-balanced meals. So yeah, so that's really important. We also, Angela mentioned routine. Our residents very much are up every morning and doing a full day of engagement and brain games and things like that. We do a lot with different therapies like nature therapy, animal therapy, all of those really fun things that we can do outside on the farmstead. And by the time everyone's done with dinner, people are pretty tired. And so we get really good results with people getting a good night's sleep. Generally, if a resident is awake at night, it's a pretty good indicator that, you know, something's bothering them, either physically or something's on their mind and they can't process it. So that routine is really important. We always say that there's, you know, 24 pieces of pie, and we want them to at least have 23 good pieces. And so a lot of our residents don't even really have challenges that would add up to an hour, and we're grateful for that, and sometimes they do. So it's just kind of working through all the things that happen and making sure our care teams, we do a lot of training with them so that they can recognize what might be going on and kind of go through the steps and get residents back on track. But yeah, you know, all those things that are good for all of us, you know, continue to be good.
Yeah. And I know, Ruth, you had mentioned social interaction and that kind of stuff. Do you want to talk more to that and what you're feeling?
Well, social isolation is bad for anybody, really, and I think that whole withdrawing into yourself, then, you know, as your world is shrinking and you're not participating in life, it can tend to take you down that trail faster, I think. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, and I mean, like places like this center here, I mean, Lenexa Old Town Activity Center is amazing. I mean, they have stuff all the time. You know, Tammy met a new friend yesterday and brought her to the Senior Truth Series. I like that. That's exciting. All right, anything else on that we want to talk about? I think it's all stuff we know, but we're, like Angela says, we're not all doing that, so that's tricky. Yeah,
I might add that we have the 10 healthy habits, which again, another handout, and there is a slide right there. So these are the healthy habits for your brain, so brain health. But there continues to be research in additional areas, and I think we've touched on pretty much most of those. Exercise, of course, and also additional research is being done, looking at maybe environmental challenges that affect our brain health, but also the importance of hearing and vision. And so we are seeing a lot more, right, about hearing. And so when we are being limited with our environment, you know, stimulus, if you will, what we can hear and participate in engagement activities, right? We want to, you know, we want to make sure our hearing is what it needs to be. So don't delay if you need your hearing.
Another place where people are reluctant for something to aid in hearing a little bit better.
Yeah, and
Lashes, people are good with, but Nobody wants the little thing in their ear.
Well, if I can also interject into that, you know, if a person has memory loss, they may not be remembering to put their hearing aids in. Or if, you know, nowadays they don't have batteries, my mom had batteries, but she often wouldn't wear them, and then she won't hear the doorbell, she won't hear the phone, she won't, you know, and so that just again exacerbates that whole cut off from the rest of the world because she's not hearing. It wasn't because she didn't want to, it's because she would forget.
Can I have just a fun little note
Please.
on brain health? Obviously, you know, addressing brain health and getting all humans aware of how important your brain is to everything we do and our quality of life later. We have recently, we have there's a program through Blue Valley, it's called CAPS. It's like the Center for Academic and Professional Studies, I believe. You have to be a senior to attend the program. We actually have a CAPS classroom over at Prairie Elder Care, and Prairie Elder Care has created a brain health curriculum that benefits teens because research shows that, you know, when you are born and a toddler and in school, you know, you're kind of eating and doing the things that you just do. Like your parents put food on the plate and you eat it. By the time you get to be a teenager and starting to think about going to college, you kind of take over those decisions for yourself, right? And so the CAP students come every Friday. They get all of their education down in the classroom. They get educated on how to be a CNA, how to give good cares. They get dementia trained. And then they get this little added education on brain health. And it's been really, really positive. And, you know, they've been sharing it with their parents. And so, you know, it's important to kind of, we only know what we know, right? So education is a huge piece, not only for those of us who are at the age when we need to know all the things about dementia, but certainly, you know, there are things we can do early on and throughout our life that will benefit us too when we get to that point. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
that's
fun.
great. That is fun. That is great. It's good to, like I said, know about that early. We will talk about a few resources and some education, but let's see if, does anybody have any questions right now that you'd like to ask? And yeah,
I'm just curious, the panel, two of the panelists mentioned younger people getting dementia. And I was wondering if you knew if the cause of dementia was like from a brain injury or not. I'm just curious.
for the early onset.
Yeah, for the
dementia,
early
is there any
onset.
information out there for early onset? Go ahead, Ange.
So, what I have seen has been a lot of alcohol-induced dementia and then vascular dementia. I'm seeing a lot of vascular dementia as well.
Which is,
with the younger,
which means.
which is like following a stroke. So something, you know, cerebral vascular.
Well, the first little icon on that, those 10 things to do for brain health was a helmet. So I don't know if that, I'm sure that's
Yeah,
keeping
and
your brain safe.
yeah, and I mean, and some of that, you know, some of it is just that early onset. Also, I do believe that as we become more educated and aware of Alzheimer's and all the dementias, even health educators and doctors are really educating themselves. We're just diagnosing it perhaps a little bit earlier too, and recognizing what that is a little bit earlier. So I think it's just a combination of things. But there is lots of information out there, and I know that Alzheimer's has done a really good job as well. So definitely go to their website and you can read up on.
And there's great research, and they're just continuing to learn. We have, the KU Research Center has some amazing research information out there that they're researching. I think we had another talk at Tomahawk about this, but just, you know, they're doing studies on avocados, they're doing studies on all kinds of things and how those fatty acids help your brain and different things like that. So, and, you know, I think places like the Alzheimer's Association are always, you know, they do a lot of fundraising and that kind of thing, and it's just one of those things that's so important. Some of that's, you know, we gotta gonna have to come from individuals. I think sometimes it's not always coming from other places right now, but, so what about another question? Yes, Beth?
I have a question for you, Lisa. I had written down in my notes that your program is a day program, but then you were talking about them sleeping and getting up early. So do they live there or go for a few hours?
We have two programs. So we do have the 24/7 on the Therapeutic Farmstead. And those are our residents. They live there 24/7. We are an age in place. So that means once we commit to you and to the client and to your family, they can finish out their time there. That we won't make them move. And then to support families who are on the wait list and just families in general who are caring for people at home, we created this respite program, and it's Monday through Friday. It's from 9 to 3. We've modeled the same engagement portion, off of what we do with the farmstead because it works. So why recreate it? So it's super fun. It's super social. You can come one day or you can come all 5. There is information on the table about the respite program in Kansas, so you can use those funds. There's $1,000 out there if you're caring for somebody who lives with you, if you're a 24/7 caregiver. And that money, it doesn't matter how much money you make or where you live, you're entitled to it. And it does have to be used for respite for the caregiver. And so people, can come to our program and get those first 10 visits paid for, which is really nice as well. So it's just it's a win-win program because, you get the whole day to yourself. And currently we do have a lot of gentlemen there, more than we've had, which is really great because actually, for those of us who know, men's programming is really challenging. Men don't, they're the head of the household. They're not going to leave. They're not going to go sit at some dumb place and, you're going to leave them and go spend all your money at the mall, all their hard-earned money at the mall. And, we hear all of it. But the men end up loving it. And we have one gentleman who, he comes 3 days, doesn't come 2. And on the days he doesn't come, he always says to his wife, well, what are you gonna do today? What are we gonna do? And she's like, well, today's not a program day. And he's like, well, then what are you gonna do to entertain me? And she's like, I've got things to do. And he's like, well, then take me to the program, drop me off at the program. So it's just become a really win-win for everybody. The clients are pretty tired by the time they get picked up. And, they sleep well, and, so it's a great program. And we don't financially, there's no gain for it. It's just kind of a service at the heart for us, for our families, and for people in the community, so.
The good thing about a busy activity center is you get entertainment and busyness, right?
It can get crazy.
Yeah.
One more question. Do you have to have a doctor's
You do not.
form for the diagnosis?
You do not. You get, there is we call it a one-pager, but it's both sides. So there's information you fill out. And then for the respite program, I don't think you need a doctor's signature either for that. Yeah, so you just fill out a form, and that gets submitted to the Department of Aging. They administer it, so.
Bob, did you have a question? You raised your hand. Did you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
I taught sociology and psychology for 30 years until I retired in 01.
Okay.
And I've noticed that there's less men involved in this entire program. And I'm curious as to why that is nowadays. Because when in my era, I retired in 2001, and it was pretty well equal, men and women. What happened?
Well, I don't know that I know the answer to that. But Anybody else wanna take on that, question, any ideas?
I don't know, so I want to say that.
Are you asking why there's more men or more women than men with dementia?
I think you're just asking
No,
in
just-
general, aren't
just
you?
here.
Yeah,
Just
even
our
when
programs.
when we toured some of the
Oh.
communities,
Oh,
you notice there's more women in different communities and then
Yeah,
more men.
and Bob, I will tell you, over here, I will tell you it kind of ebbs and flows. So I've been working with people with dementia for 10 years straight. And we've talked about kind of those trends, right? And it does ebb and flow. One thing that's really interesting about Alzheimer's and dementia, and this is a personal opinion, is just that it's still a very quietly kept hush-hush diagnosis. You know, I'm a cancer survivor, and when I had cancer, everybody kind of identified with it, and they drop off casseroles, and you know, they were comfortable dealing, you know, saying the C word and things like that. For some reason, people don't have that kind of support when it comes to Alzheimer's, and it's kind of still happening behind closed doors a little bit. And I think men just historically have led that family, and a lot of the men that we get who move in from home still are trying to be the charge of the house. And you know, just that's your role, and that's not going to change regardless. And so there's just lots of different factors. It's a very interesting, we talk about this a lot, and it would be fun for somebody to kind of study why and what it's about. Yeah, I love that you brought that up.
What do you see, Angela?
What I see, for me, what I see is that it is, as she said, men are the head of the household. And it is a generation still that it was, women more so took when they said, for sickness and health, till death do us part. Women have they have that nurturing side of them that feels like, I have to keep, this is my husband. I have to care for my husband. And I don't think that it's that men don't care or don't, you know, have that feeling, but I think men are quicker to say, okay, I need help with her. I can't, you know, I think they recognize, you know, quicker that they're not able to do that. But the other thing is that men, I feel like from a generation where whether it was their role in church, or whether it was their role in their profession, or their role in their community, families are trying to protect that of the man. And so we don't want, you know, people to know. In fact, a community where I was director of nursing, we would have, when men would come in, you know, families always signed that we could put, you know, pictures on our social media or whatever. And frequently, the men, we were not, like families would say, no, we don't want their picture on the social media. And it was because we're protecting them. We don't want people to, so it was about parents a lot of times within the community.
And I do think women are living a little longer than men, and for one thing. Anybody wanna share, there's a lot of women here, anybody have husbands that don't wanna come and join them? I hear that a lot. I've heard that at some other seminars, like, I drug my husband, but the women are sometimes just more eager to come, and men are more reluctant, so we're glad you're here. So, yeah. All right, any other questions, Judith?
Yes, what medication are citizens? Did you catch that? Can you repeat that?
The question was, what medication is available to slow down the symptoms, right? So we do have one medication that came out back in the 90s called Aricept, which many might be familiar with. That's to help treat symptoms. But more recently, in the less than 5 years, we've had 3 FDA-approved treatment medications that can actually change the trajectory of the disease. So it actually doesn't treat the symptoms, it actually is helping treat the disease. So these are actually, as I said, FDA approved. They are infusion treatments. So an individual would have to go to a medical location to have that infusion, and it would be certainly closely monitored by the medical team, because these medications do come with side effects. And so not everyone is a good candidate, but what we do know is those have to be administered early in the disease, which is why it's important for us to get a diagnosis early in the disease. But they are seeing tremendous results, and it's very much a change in what I think this area has been experiencing. Because when I started getting involved back in the 90s, there was nothing, and even 6 years ago, if there was a diagnosis, there really was nothing. So we're seeing changes. It's very much
So-
hopeful.
Yeah, that's great, that's great. All right, anybody else? What I'd like to do is just kind of, for each of you, kind of to, if you have resources you feel might be good, or kind of one thing you'd really like people to know. Again, you know, they have a lot of knowledge, and they will stick around at the end as well, and you can ask them individual questions. But Ruth, do you mind starting?
Saying one thing is gonna be hard here, but I do wanna say that the care of someone with memory loss isn't the same for everybody. It's not just like a one-time thing and everybody has to follow the same path, because they're individuals, we're all individuals. And so for some people, it doesn't work to have the loved one stay in the home. And that's not the best solution for some. For some it is. And for some, the best solution is to go to a Prairie Life center or a place similar, or to have a caregiver come in, you know. So don't feel like this is the one way to do it. No, the family has to figure out what's gonna work best, what's most honoring to the person, and what's the best help that we can provide for them. So I just wanna make sure I stress that, but also focus on what they can do, not on what they've lost. I think that's so important, because sometimes we think there's enough loss, right? The memory loss comes with a whole bunch of stuff. But what are they still able to do? Mom loved to play Rummikub, all right? So Rummikub was her thing. She was the queen of Rummikub. We played, I cannot tell you how many games. Now, mind you, there were a few times when she wasn't able. We would start out, but we ended up having to put it away after some things didn't work out. But many times, we would sit up late and she would be like, do you have time for one more game? She would ask me, unless you're too tired. I said, well, it is 11 o'clock, Mom, and I am having to get up tomorrow. But the other thing is that although they may not remember, Mom may not remember what I've done in that particular moment or in that instance, but do it anyway, because in the moment it matters. It matters to them. In the moment when you're doing something for your loved one, they know. They may forget 5 minutes later, but in the moment it matters. So do it. Just do it anyway.
Thank you. You have lots of wisdom to share.
Okay, everyone, to touch on what Ruth said, everyone's journey with dementia is different. I have worked over the last 30 years with thousands of people living with dementia, and every journey is individual. And I want to just touch on what she said also with what you do and what you say, they won't remember, but they will remember how you made them feel. And so the individualized care, remembering who that person is, remembering, and you know, if it's a situation where they're not able to stay at home, where maybe it is a time where you need to look at outside outside care, then just know that you're not alone, have the support, and, it's very important to take someone even with you if you start looking at places that know the right questions to ask. Because typically when families come in someplace and they're ready to look, you'll talk to people at every community, and they will tell you, and when you're in crisis mode, or you're trying to, find something right now, it sounds good, but take someone who knows those questions to ask, who has been on the inside, and who knows what's important for your loved ones with dementia.
Valerie?
Well, Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease, and it is a continuum. So there is a early, a middle, and a late kind of phase. It's a brain disease, and so this is, I think, important for us to remember that when our loved one is doing something that might be a little bit unsettling, a little irritating, maybe something that just makes us upset, remember it's the disease that is doing this. It is still the same person. And so we just have to remember that this is what we're dealing with.
I hate to go last on this one. You guys have said all the good stuff. I guess I would say just there's hope. We're really lucky in the Kansas City Metro to have so many really devoted people who are going above and beyond in their roles to support families and people living with dementia. When it comes time for you to make a decision about placing somebody in 24/7 care, don't get overwhelmed with that. There's some place for everybody. And I always caution families, when you go into a place, don't be overwhelmed or wowed by pretty wallpaper and nice chairs. Yeah, chandeliers, because that's nice when you walk in, but you really want your loved one someplace where they're going to be able to really keep living. That's the goal. So, and just reach out for help. There's, I know you could call any one of us. The Alzheimer's has the 24/7. There's so many really incredible people down at that Alzheimer's Association who can talk to you and get you hooked up with services. My friend Michelle back here, she's incredibly resourceful. She has lots of contacts. She'll call 4,000 people to try to get somebody a ride to a jam session. I mean, it's amazing. So, just feel free to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because there is help out there.
Want to add one thing?
I just wanna add one thing. There is nothing at all funny about dementia and about Alzheimer's. My dad was a preacher also. And he taught me that if you can laugh, you can get through anything. So I encourage anyone who is dealing with being a caregiver in the home, find the moments that you can laugh. Not at the dementia, not at the disease process, but at the moment. If you're able to laugh, you'll be able to get through that day.
That's a good point. One of the things I know the Alzheimer's Association has, there's stuff, if you can't come to support groups in person or at your church or something like that, there's online support. There's also an app, and I think, what was the app about, real quick?
Sure, it's called My All's Journey. It's an app that can be not purchased, it's free, can be downloaded, I guess, installed, from one of those stores, yes. Anyway,
You didn't create this, obviously.
No.
Yeah.
okay, so an app that can go on your phone, and it actually gives you the opportunity to kind of take the track as a caregiver or even a person who is early in their disease and is still working with devices. And so there are all kinds of support in terms of information, there's short videos. I really like that there's some opportunity for an individual to even listen to a video about the experience, the emotions, the thoughts that go with that. So it has a little message every morning for you. So it's called My All's Journey. I've got information on the table, but that's what you need to look for when you go to one of your stores online.
Yeah. So one thing I put on the evaluation form, if you guys will fill those out, that would be very helpful to us. The Alzheimer's Association will take your names and your zip codes. It's just part of their programming. They want to know where they're out in the world educating and where people are coming from. So nothing that you're going to be signed up for unless you want to. Ruth has a sign up if you want her blog. They have information. I put on there, and this is a surprise to all of you, and I'm just hoping that one of you has a resource for this, but I know there's something called, what did I put on my sheet? Dementia, where they go and they can experience what it's like. Oh, the virtual dementia tour, yes. So people can do those, right? It's not just, anybody can do it. So how do we find out about if they want to try one of these virtual dementia tours? You kind of, I don't know if it's a headset or, tell us about that, Michelle. Do you want to come up or you raise your hand?
I thought you were asking who can get you set up for that, but, so.
Oh, no, maybe we want it,
No,
I don't know how, but if they wanted to experience that, can you tell a little bit about it?
Yeah, so, as, in our area, we have a lot of hospice companies that are, I don't need that.
Does she need this?
Do I need this? No. We have a lot of hospice companies that are signing up to be virtual dementia tour facilitators. And so Lisa and I, and Val and I, have some connections where we could probably get something like that set up. We could either do that and they do it a couple of different ways. So they can bring the whole experience here. We could find a room that's dark and quiet, or to someone's facility and do it there. Or we also have some other partners in the community that have like an excellence of care center where they have an apartment set up. That I think is really where it's eye-opening and effective.
Like
So
senior helpers?
senior helpers is who does it, Jeff.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so tell them what it is, kind
Oh,
of just a quick
okay, yeah.
synopsis of.
So I don't want to tell too much.
Okay,
Because we're
okay.
not supposed to tell too much about it.
Okay, well, tell
But
us.
basically what you do is you spend 8 minutes in the shoes of someone living with dementia, okay? So prior to going into the room, you are geared up with all kinds of sensory deprivation tools, and you're sent into the room with a task list, and that's all I'm gonna tell you. And you have 8 minutes to complete your task.
It's really eye-opening.
And while you're in the room, you have someone who's observing and writing everything you do down, jumping, things you're saying, that sort of thing. And then at the end, we typically do a debrief to talk about what did we see that you did? What experiences? Why do we think you did that? How does that correlate to the disease progression? How does that correlate to memory loss? That sort of thing.
And it's free, correct?
It's
Yes.
free.
So mark that down on the evaluation sheet if you would like more information on that, and we will work something out to we'll either get you information on where you can experience that, or we will create that experience, or we'll
Yeah,
figure it
and
out.
I'm actually, Julie, working on a couple of other partners that are interested in that, so maybe we could do it all on the same day and just do a full day.
Yeah.
At Jeff's place, I just had lunch with him last week, so
Okay.
he's always willing to do it, and I'm a facilitator. Lisa, you've done it before, haven't you? So I'm sure we could pull it off.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
This is your first time to the Senior True Series, and I know if you signed up through the Lenexa, it's probably your first time. Make sure you mark that it's your first time. First time people get a $10 gift card. If you brought a friend, you get a $10 gift card. I'd like to bribe you. I'm not too proud to say that. But I think it's always, I always learn something, and I think the more people we get here, the better. So, I think that's all. Our next two seminars are at Tomahawk, okay? They're on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. The room looks, about the same setup, but it is at Tomahawk Ridge Community Center. And then in January, we'll start coming here. The first one in January, because they are so proactive, they already had it on the schedule, it will be on a Tuesday, right? Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be an
January.
unusual one on Tuesday, but then we'll go to regular Thursdays.
Yeah, so, but we'll keep you updated. I'll probably call you just to let you know. All right, these ladies will stick around. Michelle will be here. They have information. So please ask them questions, and I thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And, we will see you in November, hopefully. It's a little earlier. It's not the last month. It's the third Wednesday, and then it's the second Wednesday in December. So we're gonna see a lot of each other. I'm excited. It'll be fun. Okay, thank you.